How the Indonesian youth styles go from this to this? In this video, we uncover the layers of history, culture, and international relations that played a role in the transformations of the way youth in Indonesia dress. As we acknowledge that Indonesia has a various regional traditional clothing, this video will focus on Indonesia's intangible cultural heritage. Batik, in the scope, Yogyakarta.
First, we'd like to take you back. Is international influence in clothing a new thing? Unfortunately, there aren't many records of what people in Indonesia wore before the 19th century, and it is assumed that fashion was predominantly influenced by indigenous cultures, with clothing styles varying significantly across the archipelago. However, in the 1800s, as development of modern art and photographs grew due to colonialism and the Industrial Revolution, we could start to trace what Indonesians, especially in Java, wore at the time. From these pictures, you can see that most people were wearing patterned fabric called batik, which is defined as fabric dyed using wax resist. According to some readings, most scholars believe that the intricate Javanese batik designs would only have been possible after the importation of finely woven imported cloth, which was first imported to Indonesia from India around the 1800s and afterwards from Europe beginning 1815. Some experts feel that batik was originally reserved as an art form for Javanese royalty. It also carries philosophies and symbolisms with certain customary rules of how the fabric should be worn. For example, women should wear the fabric from left to right, while men wear the fabric from right to left, or the prohibition of wearing a parang pattern in keraton. To explore more, we went to the Museum Batik Yogyakarta. We learned from Mas Didi, the museum guide, that it turns out international trade influenced the different patterns of batik. Batik near harbors, such as Batik Pekalongan, had vibrant colors and floral motifs, reflecting the influence of international traders who introduced diverse dyes, tools, and artistic styles to Indonesia. Fashion critics viewed that fashioning, stylinging, and visual representations play a key role in shaping emancipatory identity politics and resisting dominant cultures. Mbak Elok, a lecturer of sociology at UGM, highlighted that we can see that a mix of batik and European look that the French royal court became arguably the arbiter of was seen in people of keraton or high society.
Sebetulnya orang Indonesia sendiri kalau misalkan tidak terhalang oleh ekonomi dan aturan-aturan sosial gitu ya, kupikir sangat lihai untuk mengkombinasikan unsur fashion dari manapun. Karena kalau misalkan kita lihat ke belakang gitu ya, misalnya Raden Saleh, ada yang tahu dia adalah seniman yang juga bergaul secara internasional di zamannya. Dia bahkan mengkombinasikan beberapa unsur pakaian yang biasa digunakan oleh bangsawan Eropa, tapi dia kombinasikan dengan kain gitu misalnya.
Emphasizing how colonization or style of the West influenced fashion.
Yet, we still want to uncover what factors accelerated the domination of the Western look in global fashion trends. Who were the major influencers? Well, according to Mbak, we stitched up the book by Tansy E. Hoskins, which was recommended by her, and browsing through the internet, we concluded that major reasons for the acceleration are inseparable and fall under one category: globalization. First, corporate power. A handful of multinational corporations dominate the fashion industry. Fashion hubs like New York, London, and Paris are located in powerful centers of industrial capital. Fashion houses need the political and economic clout of a powerful country that can negotiate advantageous terms for its products and establish cultural hegemony for its ideas. Second, the fashion media. Fashion brands rely heavily on high-profile and credible magazines that has been around for so long to promote their products. These ads, often glamorous and persuasive, create what Karl Marx called false needs, shaping consumers' mindsets and making people feel they need to buy what they don't need, as well as a trend for benchmark for fast fashion or local fashion brands.
Jadi sudah sejak lama dilakukan, mungkin sekarang menjadi lebih kelihatan karena exposure media.
just like the scene from Devil Wears Prada.
However, that blue represents millions of dollars and countless jobs. And it's sort of comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when in fact you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Third, global markets. Post-World War II neoliberalism and advancements in industry paved the way for fast fashion and regulations so that companies could sell all around the world. For example, in Suharto's era, we can see how magazines and international brands started to enter Indonesia. Fourth, pop culture. Countries who invest in music, films, and entertainment can also define trends that heavily influence on fashion choices. Each generation reflects its pop culture icons through style, making fashion a mirror of cultural shifts. Fifth, social media. The internet has made the spread of information much faster. Although it has democratized fashion, it is still the big companies that also advertise through these platforms. Lastly, it's your personal choice.
Bentuk fashion baju tradisional gitu ya. Mereka kemudian butuh lebih banyak bergerak, mobilitas tinggi dan lain sebagainya. Mungkin untuk beberapa style bisa cocok tapi beberapa juga enggak. Jadi mereka lebih ke menyesuaikan. Jadi bukan suka yang mana, tetapi mereka menyesuaikan sama konteksnya. Dan mereka juga bukan orang yang kemudian kalau misalkan berkain atau menggunakan pakaian tradisional kemudian begitu saja mengadopsi pakaian tradisional mereka pakai, tapi biasanya justru dikombinasikan dengan sesuatu yang sesuai dengan gaya mereka.
This brings us to the next part, resistance. As people are becoming more aware that global fashion trends are Western dominated, there have been acts of resistance and reform in the fashion industry to make it more diverse. For example, the punks of the 1970s, or how UNESCO made an effort in recognizing batik and other pieces of clothing as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Interestingly, in early 2021, the act of rebellion or decolonization happened in Indonesia through hashtag Berkain Bersama, which has garnered over 358 million views on TikTok and other forms of social media. This hashtag highlights the creative ways people try and style their batik on a daily basis by combining them with modern fashion items such as t-shirts, sneakers, jumpsuits, and crop tops, fostering a deeper connection between Indonesian youths and traditional Indonesian culture. The virality was helped by names with many followings such as Arawinda Kirana and Rania Yamin. We asked Mas Didik's take on this.
Oke, pertama mungkin cara kita kalau menurut saya mungkin cara kita senang dulu. Kita senang dulu. Yang penting kita senang pakai batik. Jadi kita sangat senang sekali ketika di Jogja itu ada hari tertentu yang memakai pakaian budaya. Salah satunya di batik gitu. Ya mungkin suatu saat kita akan tahu nama motifnya, kita akan tahu mungkin lebih jauh tentang makna filosofinya, kita tahu batik ini untuk apa, jadi keunikan batik di mana gitu. Tapi minimal senang dulu, prihatin pada generasi sekarang ya, bahwa batik itu sudah semakin pudar lah kayak gitu. Jadi kita selalu berusaha untuk mengedukasi lagi pada masyarakat itu tentang batik. Jadi bahwa batik kita itu banyak makna filosofinya, di dalamnya banyak sekali edukasi dan ajarannya dan lain-lain dan uniknya gitu. Dan batik kita juga diakui UNESCO ya sebagai warisan budaya. Jadi kita harus tahu kenapa diakui UNESCO. Jadi kita harus bangga punya batik Indonesia seperti itu.
Now, what impact did all of the accumulation of history and factors have in Yogyakarta's producers and youth choices? We asked around Visipol UGM and we went to Beringharjo Market and Jalan Malioboro to take a closer look.
Youth have a tendency to use the batik and traditional clothing with a mix of other types of clothes, such as jeans. The impact of global fashion trends has also made youth able to have more options and outlets of creativity in terms of what they wear.
Jadi karena hari ini lagi batik day di Visipol, aku hari ini pakai kain. Terus aku kombinasiin pakai jeans juga biar gayanya tradisional tapi tetap modern gitu.
Kalau for me, I think I just made like more casual fit with batik.
Nah ini tuh kayak outernya batik, terus ada inner, terus celana.
Soalnya butik.
Oke, aku juga hari ini pakai batik karena butik day.
Oh, kamu lihat di grup HI Raya itu lagi rebuan batik kan?
Aku pakai ini karena aku cari batik di lemari itu ada cuma di doang.
I think for me it's positive because regardless, I feel like kayak meskipun ini tuh di-combine, it's still an effort to kind of keep the tradition alive. And in a world that is constantly growing and is constantly trying to create new trends each and every single day, the fact that we're still holding on to old tradition, I think it's very cool and it's very important, and it's actually really interesting and impressive actually that we can combine both old and new and create something different.
Walaupun ini termasuk akulturasi yang menghilangkan nilai asli budayanya, kayak decolonization is salah satu.
Kalau aku sendiri jarang ya, paling kalau ada acara-acara penting mungkin. Karena aku ngerasa karena udah jarang banget yang pakai baju-baju tradisional tuh kayak awkward aja kalau misalkan pakai baju tradisional ke acara-acara yang gak mengharuskan pakai baju tersebut gitu.
In Bringharjo Market and Jalan Malioboro, we observed a few things. Traditional markets and modern stores cater to varying demographics. Traditional markets like Bringharjo maintain their roles as accessible, community-rooted sellers, while modern outlets target more upscale or tourist markets. However, traditional markets and modern stores are affected in common areas as well. First, they both have shifted towards selling more printed batik instead of traditional wax. Secondly, designs change often and adapted to global trends, and a demanding market to sell modified batik and kebaya.
Biasanya juga lihat di ini sih sosial media, iya.
Positif atau negatif?
Hal yang positif Kak, soalnya bisa lebih mengembangkan batik itu sendiri. Jadi misalnya lebih diminati untuk kalangan anak muda maupun yang lebih dewasa gitu. Jadi nggak monoton. Iya.
And lastly, social media and trends of mix matching has influenced the rise of traditional clothing sales.
Oh ya, alhamdulillah sekarang semakin banyak. 2 tahun terakhir ini banyak banget, sangat banyak, sangat banyak. Selain yang sudah biasa, kebanyakan dari media sosial. Itu yang paling banyak yang dari TikTok itu pasti nyariin.
Karena lagi batik gitu ya.
Iya, alhamdulillah itu yang bikin Mbak yang baik hati itu. Ibu nggak bisa bikin.
Reflecting on this, it's clear that the interplay between tradition and international influence has long shaped Indonesian fashion, starting from the subtle adoption of cultural assimilation in batik designs.
Evidently, what we have been covering in this video intersects with the post-colonialism theory. In short, post-colonialism helps us understand phenomena by using the perspectives that integrate history in which a world order is dominated by major state actors and their domineering interests and ways of thinking of the world. It also acknowledges the perspectives of nations who were colonized and want to celebrate as well as reclaim their cultural identities. We demonstrated the history of how colonialism in Indonesia affected fashion and how it is used to differentiate social classes. Then we showed how the process of globalization had dramatically accelerated Western influences because the West had already had advantages in capital and technology. And now we live in a time where youths, especially in Indonesia, are aware of the heavy colonialized influence, and there are more platforms for these youth to creatively reimagine batik and their fashion using traditional elements in ways that it can represent and resonate as well with the modern sensibilities. We also went to the grassroots to not only observe but listen, and we found out that a lot of people in Yogyakarta, especially the youth, are very optimistic about this change. However, we as a team reflected that when we want to embrace innovation and these changes, we believe that it is still very important to remember history, tradition, and also, culture itself, so that Indonesian youth cannot just adapt to a globalized world, but they can also reclaim their heritage and redefine what it means to be Indonesian in the 21st century.